So the reason that we found Edublox was kind of a strange path, I guess, that we took to be able to find it. I have an education background, and I also have dyslexia in my family. And so when my son Reef was in preschool, we were kind of starting to see his ability to make letter recognition just wasn't super strong, or he had to do it in a patterned way. And so that was something his teachers in preschool commented on. And when he then got into kindergarten, we were also seeing that some of his phonological awareness wasn't super strong. So his letter sound recognition, definitely being able to quickly notice letters. He was just hitting the benchmarks for each quarter of his grades in kindergarten. So he was just kind of skating by. And we talked with his teacher about that. And he had received speech therapy earlier on when he was 3 and 4. But he didn't qualify when he was in kindergarten because the sounds were for older children. So he didn't receive speech, and he just, they said he was just within that range, but still, didn't quite feel right. But we said, okay, well, we'll go along and see if he just doesn't pick this up. And then we got through into first grade and had conversations with the teachers. And it was kind of the same thing. He always just was at grade level by the time it was time to be really looking at this. And again, with an education background, feeling like, okay, this doesn't seem exactly right, but he is hitting the benchmarks. He is hitting those places. So when we're now another school year, and so now it's the summer. So now we're getting ready for second grade, and second grade is a big year. Second grade is the year that we really start to really put our reading together. We're still learning to read, but it's the year that we start to make those diagnoses. It's the year that IEPs really start to come forward when it comes to learning disabilities. It's the year that my brother, who is dyslexic, was held back. And so for me, second grade was this was the year that if we were going to be able to identify something, this was going to be it. So I reached out to his teacher at the very beginning of the year. And within 2 weeks of second grade, I just said, I'm not going to wait another 9 weeks to find out if he's on grade level. And I initiated the IEP process. And so we went through that process, starting it in September. And part of that process here, as it in the United States, I know, is that they have to do an RTI. So we had to do some response to intervention. So there had to be some school in-class support that needed to be implemented before we could actually go forward with a full evaluation. And so by the time we went through that whole process, we're now looking at, it was January. So we started the process in September, looking at it January, that we finally got the IEP. And in that time frame, I went and got his eyes checked. I went outside and got a dyslexia screening, and I did all of those things. And when I did the dyslexia screening at a private institution here in Melbourne, they said to me, well, you might want to go to this developmental optometrist in the area because he specializes on helping children when it might be an eye muscle issue as opposed to a really dyslexic. So we went to see that eye doctor, and he was Reef was diagnosed with exophoria, so his eyes, their ability to focus in at the same time. And in that process, we're still now going through the IEP process. So now we've started eye therapy, and now we finally got his IEP, and they agreed that he needed speech, so he finally qualified for that, as well as his reading support. And so that was January, February, what I'm going to say. March came, we went on spring break, and COVID hit. And so he got 4 weeks of services in school, but we were still able to go see our eye doctor. And so in that process now, we're homeschooling, and we're at home, and he's not getting the supports that we've been fighting for. I talked with our developmental optometrist, and we started looking for online programs of some kind of tutoring support or reading specialist support that he could have that would match with his disability. He when he is screened and tested, his phonological awareness is actually within range. It's average. But where he really, really struggles is his letter or number recognition. His rapid recall is way, way, way down. And so when our developmental optometrist started looking into it, he's actually the one that found Edublox and reached out to Miss Susan to see if it was a match that way. And that's how it connected with us. Most of the programs that we were looking at were only focusing on the phonological aspect of it, where it was really for Reef, it's his whole word recognition. So when he's reading, he's mixing words like of or if or the and a or off, words that kind of have a similar look, and they don't really change the meaning of the sentence that you're reading, but it interrupts your fluency. And so that was how we kind of found out about Edublox in a very, circular way, I guess. Not so much. He wasn't getting super frustrated. Homework would be frustrating for him. And we wouldn't want to do homework. That would definitely be, but he wasn't upset at school. He wasn't ever saying, I'm not a good reader or there's something wrong. There was, we were lucky that he didn't feel that way. We didn't ever say that. We never said something is, different or, you're not a good reader. We just kind of said we needed additional help. And we did talk about, that his, that he needed to do these eye exercises to make his eyes stronger. And there were, lots of conversations. Well, my brother doesn't have to do that. And I said, well, your brother's, good in one thing and you're good in something else. And, so sometimes you have to just practice something different. So I don't think he was overly negatively impacted at that point. Yeah. I mean, it's frustrating. I'm going to say it's frustrating. It's frustrating on a couple levels. One, as I said, I'm an educator. I've been in the field of education for 20 years. And so you kind of say, oh, well, how do you not see this? And even though I did see it to some extent, you still kind of say, okay, well, that's the teacher. They're seeing him. They know. And so I think so it was a little bit frustrating for me because I knew something wasn't right. And I, in hindsight, wish I had pushed harder in kindergarten. But that's hindsight, right? So I think that was frustrating. The other thing that, the IEP process is frustrating. It's long. I'm lucky because I know the process. I know the laws. I know what you're supposed to do. Most families don't. And it can be overwhelming to go into a meeting and get assessment results, get a diagnosis or not a diagnosis. And now they're telling you what the action plan is and everything. And you're supposed to sign this piece of paper. And I know for my husband, he's not in education. And so he was like, well, what are they talking about? Who is this person that's in this meeting? Is this the right thing? And so one of the things, my sister is an assistant principal in here in the United States as well. And her background is in special ed. And so that was a great advocate for me and somebody who really said to me, by law, you have 5 days to see that IEP, that proposed IEP. You want to see that in advance. And I don't think people recognize that. They give you the pieces of paper to sign and do that, but to really read all that and to understand that and to understand that, you as the parent have the ability to say, I want this as one of their goals. And this is how do we get that goal on there? Is really important. And I think that, so for me, it's frustration in that it just took a lot longer than I would wanted, but also just frustration for other families that don't know that just feel so overwhelmed and don't have somebody or don't know that they can look at something in advance or they can get some of that information ahead of time to be able to understand or to start to process it. Because you do come home and you say, oh man, I wish that we had added that. And now I have to wait a year to be able to change that. We did the developmental optometrist, and then I had conversations with other online tutoring programs. And we also, like I said, had just what was his response to intervention in school and then work at home that we were doing. But that was really it. And we were lucky. We found Edublox was one of the first ones we found. The thing that really attracted us to Edublox was the recognition that there are two forms of dyslexia. There's one that is, and it's the most common, which is around phonological awareness and letter sound recognition, but that there's also a holistic, a whole word recognition issue. And that's where Reef struggles, is that whole word. And so Edublox was the only one that we talked to that said, yes, that is actually a form of dyslexia, and that is something that we can work on. So that for us was, the small percentage of children who have that, this was what, was interested for us, because that was his need. We didn't find anybody else that was willing to. They said, yes, that is it. There is that, but really it's a phonological awareness piece. And so we'll work on the phonological awareness, and then maybe we'll be able to get some of that whole word. Whereas in talking with Miss Susan, it was, no, we'll start with the whole word if that's where his issue is, and then add in the phonological awareness piece. It's been good. We've kind of, I feel like over the past year, kind of grown as Edublox has grown. We started just having Zoom meetings with Miss Susan and Miss Desiree, and now there's a much more elaborate learning platform where Reef is able to see their screens and do activities, and so it's been I think it's been a growing process for all of us, and it's been kind of fun to, I know that Miss Susan has said, okay, well, we're going to try this, and that didn't really work very well, so now we're going to try this, and I feel like part of that is her and Desiree as well, their ability to say, okay, well, this is where Reef is, and meet his needs, as opposed to this is what's prescribed, and this is the only way we do this. And again, for me and my belief about education and following the child's lead and building on their strengths, I think that's what Edublox has done. They said, okay, well, we're going to try this, and that worked, or that didn't work, or he's been really successful. We're going to keep doing it this way, and adjusting to that. And so that's been a really nice process for us to kind of start with Miss Susan, and then we added Miss Desiree, and now we have both of them, and they both work on different things with him. And I know that he likes kind of that variety of having both of the teachers there. Yeah, Reef has improved a lot over the past year. When I think about sitting and reading with him, we read every night, or just even playing a board game and he's reading something. His willingness to volunteer to read has just leaps and bounds. He would never volunteer to read. And so now he's, fighting, oh yeah, I want to read that card, or asking to read something. And so that's really exciting. And now when he is reading, he's not getting frustrated, or he used to, when he would stumble across a word, he would kind of just go, like something like that, and now he really stops and tries to sound it out. He also is much more fluid in his reading, where he can just sit down and read now, and there's not a lot of stopping. He can read, a paragraph almost now without stopping and starting. And he's also taken the initiative, like when he needs a break, to kind of stop and talk about the story that we're reading, as opposed to just to continue to struggle on. And so I think that's been a nice thing. And I don't know if that's something that I know Miss Desiree, when they do the comprehension, they kind of read and they talk about it, and then they read a little bit more. And so I'm seeing him do some of that when we're reading, which is nice. He's also, like I said earlier, homework is not an issue anymore. Now it's, okay, it's time to read, and we sit down, or we're going to do homework, and homework isn't an issue, which is great. I know he feels more confident in his reading and his ability to do that. So I think those are all positive things. And then as far as when you look at his diagnostic scores that are coming from the district, he's, making huge improvements. And his last report card, I think his fluency rate increased by 29 words a minute or something like that, which is huge. And his Lexile number has gone up by something. And so he's definitely on grade level. And we feel really good about that. And I do attribute a lot of that to Miss Susan and Miss Desiree and their consistency of working with him, and that I'm able to hear some of what they're saying, so then I'm able to reiterate that. Whereas what's happening at school, I might get a report, but I don't hear the conversation. And since I hear a conversation, I can then be able to say, oh, what were you talking about? Or what was that spelling rule? Because mom doesn't know how to spell. So teach me how to spell that word, those kinds of things. So that's been really nice. I've actually explained Edublox to lots of people before. Mostly I say it's an online one-on-one video tutoring service, I would say, that specifically targets Reef's needs for his reading, around his whole word recognition, around fluency, around his comprehension. And it's an engaging way for him to hear some different perspectives on his reading. Well, I can't fully speak to what others do because we didn't try another service. So I can say for us, what it did is it's given us the consistency of learning to read in a way that is broken down into parts that make sense for my child. And that we're able to hear that because it's taking place in our home. And so we're able to hear it and to reinforce it, as well as then see the benefits of it pretty quick. And I will say that, I told Reef that I was having this interview today, and he said, oh, are you talking to Miss Susan? And I said, no, I'm not talking to Miss Susan. I'm talking to somebody else. I said, but, what would you like me to say? And he said that it's fun. And I said, okay, I can say that it's fun. And I said, anything else? I said, what do you think about how your reading is going? And he said, oh, I think it's going really well. So, I think that speaks volumes, and I said, you're not getting frustrated anymore? And he said, no, I'm not getting frustrated, and I like it. And I think I'm becoming a good reader. So I don't know, that to me is worth $1 million. I think the biggest thing I'd like people to know is to give it a try. I think that anything you do is going to be hard. And when it comes to your children, you want to try everything. And so I think, you have to be the adult. And I'm not going to lie, in the beginning, Reef didn't want to do it twice a week or whatever. One day he does it before he even goes to school. So there are definitely days that he doesn't want to do it because he's 9 and that's what a 9-year-old does. But I think, as a parent, you have to say, this is what we're going to do, and this is the right thing to do. And it doesn't mean that that you can't do it. It just means we need a little bit of extra help right now. And I think trying Edublox and giving it the opportunity, you'll see the results. But you have to try it. You have to try it for more than 2 weeks. You're not going to see the results in 2 weeks. It's not a super quick fix. That said, we're almost a year in, and we are seeing a lot of results, and very happy with it. But it's almost like, and even Miss Susan said this: we're climbing a hill. We're climbing a hill, and so it's hard work to climb a hill. But once you get to the top, then it's downhill, and that's kind of where we are. I think we've passed over the peak now, and we've seen that view, and we're coming down, and we're rolling down, and we're making huge leaps and bounds. So I think if people give it the chance, I also think that as Edublox grows, the benefit that they can continue to give to families is really helping with that IEP struggle, and having an outside source be able to provide support to the IEP team as to where the child is or what's working outside of the classroom as well is a benefit. I know Miss Susan has come to one of our IEPs and she adjusted some of her lessons based on what she heard his classroom teachers saying. And so that holistic approach, again, goes back to what I said earlier about that feeling like we're part of a family and that personalization. So she came to listen to what was happening in school and made those adjustments so that everybody was working on the same thing. And I think that's so important, that everybody's on the same page, working together, that holistic approach. I think the reason that I agreed to do a testimonial is because of the growth that I've seen in my son and in the improvement that I've seen, and his own confidence in reading has grown so much, and how he's excited to read, and he's wanting to read, and he's not frustrated if we're reading a book that's a little bit harder than what he might usually read. And I think that the idea of helping another family or another student or another child just to feel good about school and good about education and good about reading, it opens doors. I mean, everybody says that, but it really does. I mean, you need to be able to read to do anything else. And people struggle with that. Kids struggle with that aren't even diagnosed with something. And I think just having a little bit of extra help sometimes is all you need. And so if hearing, our story and hearing that Reef is doing well and he's, leaps and bounds of where he was a year ago, helps somebody else and gives somebody else just the courage to call, even if they don't know if there's something wrong, then it's worth it. I think one of the things that I noticed on some of the other tutoring programs that I looked at that I didn't notice with Edublox was that they talked about like either a monthly or every 8 weeks or some 12 weeks. So whatever a consistent time frame of getting a written report of something that was a write-up of to where he was and where he is now. So some kind of documentation showing his growth. I have gotten, links that say, oh, well, this is the lesson that we're working on, but nothing specific that's been, Reef took this comprehension test and he got 4 out of 5 questions right, or whatever it might be. Nothing like that. That I think would be nice to be able to see something that's, he's now able to recognize these, 300 words, or these are the words that he's worked on, or whatever it is, something like that. Absolutely. I think Edublox is a great value. I think both the value for my son and his reading ability is, priceless. I think that the growth he's made, and I don't believe that in this past year he would have made this growth without Edublox and really getting to be, he started the 3rd grade at an end of 1st grade level reading, and by mid-year he was back into he was at a 3rd grade reading level, beginning early 3rd grade reading level. So he had huge growth in that first, course of the year, and now we're just waiting to find out how, at the end of the year where he is. So the value there is, like I said, is just priceless. And I think that the value when I pay for my classes, my one-on-one tutoring is good value as well. It's a nice balance between, okay, I know we need to do this, but it's not breaking the bank. It's something that we can make work, and it's consistent enough. So we do it every twice a week. That's the right balance for us, and it's comparatively to some of the other programs that I looked at. It's a little bit less expensive, but I think that I think the value that way is great as well. I think it's great. I mean, I think that Edublox has been great. It's been really just a phenomenal service, and we're thrilled with the results and excited for what it's going to be able to do for Reef for the rest of his life.